What is up, degenerates? This is Locked In, as per usual. I'm your host, Mason Cameron, at PFF_Mace on Twitter. And with me, as always, the genius behind this whole operation, my partner in crime, Vishaal Gupta, at Vishaal_Gupta 95 on Twitter. We're back at it. We're a little bit late. I had to run around because I'm a dummy and I don't schedule out things very well. I told my brother I would take him to a concert. He's going to see Senses Fail, which if anybody is as old as I am, I might be the oldest on here, even though I look like really young. But I knew that I was like, all right, I got to go do this for my guy. So I had to drive him down there. So I appreciate all y'all. Sorry we're late. But V, how are you doing? You ready to make some money tonight?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's should be actually a good slate. A lot of interesting games this week, even though there's a lot of teams on bye, but excited. Should be a good one this week.
There are a lot of teams on bye, and it's actually pretty cool because that means that we actually have a bunch of the games. We have pretty much every game on the slate. We have some sort of skin in it, and we're going to be able to talk about it. So that's really, really cool. And, you know, we did over underdogs last night, and Vaughn was with us then, and we had to bring him back again. He's on a burner. We love to talk to him. So if you didn't go see that, check it out on our YouTube page. Check it out on our Twitch page, Facebook as well. Vaughn, how are you doing? You're on the main event show here. We had you a few weeks ago, so it's good to have you back into the big show, winning us some more money. How you doing tonight?
Good. It's good to be back. I usually work on Friday nights. This was an open one, so I was like, I got to hit you guys up and be on the pod this week, especially because I got to brag about a couple of my preseason over-unders that we're going to get to today.
Yeah, we love to see it. You know, Vaughn's been on a heater. So anybody that doesn't know, Vaughn writes the player props article over at importantnonsense.com. Go check it out. He's on a freaking burner. Everything is winning. He's printing money over there. You can't miss it. And what else we have on tap? Actually, before we head into anything, I have a comment here. Our guy Thomas, I'm sorry, Thomas. I had to start the show a little bit late, so I hope you're still around here. And unfortunately, we're probably not even the guys you wanted to see. You probably wanted to see Jason and Neil and Jordan and all the guys. But we will help you out anyway. So Thomas wants to know, boys, are you guys on the Deshaun Jackson hype train? Or he has a question between him and Gabe Davis. Me personally, I mean, I had to check my calendar when I saw this question, because it's definitely not 2011 anymore. Like, I'm confused at how Deshaun Jackson still keeps getting jobs in the NFL. Like, God bless him, but I just don't think that this is going to be very well. Are you guys kind of on the same boat? I think that it's definitely Gabe. They have just such an elite offense over there, which, Thomas, we're definitely going to get into. And no, you're all good, dude. Don't worry about it. We definitely love having you come in, talk to us. You know, hopefully we'll win you some money over here, and then you can head straight into the Discord through our Patreon and ask everybody in there, all the fantasy football guys. They'll give you 100 different answers. So, but what do you guys think? Are you guys Gabe Davis, Deshaun Jackson?
Definitely Gabe Davis for me. I'm a Bills fan, and I personally think Gabe Davis is actually pretty overrated. That being said, I think Josh Allen really makes him into a really good number 2. But fantasy-wise, yeah, I definitely roll with Davis there. I mean, I don't even know if Deshaun Jackson has played this year, has he? If you're playing a Ravens receiver, definitely go Duvernay or even Demarcus Robinson if he's available. But yeah, I wouldn't trust Deshaun Jackson at this point.
I already know what B's gonna say too.
I mean, the last thing I remember of Deshaun Jackson was him playing for the Raiders last year, where he catches a deep pass, then runs backwards and fumbles the ball against the Chiefs in prime time. So if that's my last memory of him, it's probably not a good thing. Just go with Gabe Davis.
I was going to say the same thing. I think we talked about that during that game.
I'm sure we did. That was a huge talking point last year.
Oh, he said, he's actually on Deion Jackson. Okay.
Deion Jackson.
I think I misread that. You're good, Thomas. Don't worry about it. What do you guys think? Does that change anything for you guys?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, yeah.
I think that changes quite a bit.
Actually, I think I like Deion Jackson better than Gabe Davis.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, let Thomas know. What do you guys think? So if you guys are on Deion Jackson, what's your analysis on that situation? Do you guys like his prospects?
Well, Taylor's out. Taylor's already been
Right.
ruled out, so Jackson's starting
Yeah.
for them. He's better than
And they
a
just
flex.
got rid
He's
of
like a solid
Hines,
RB2.
so
Right. And we're going to talk about that game here in a little bit later. So, Thomas, definitely stay tuned in. We're going to hit on all that. But I think you're right there, too. I think Deion Jackson actually does make a great play there because eventually the Bills are probably going to, be up by a grip and they're just going to stop throwing the ball. Maybe they like taking down the division piece by piece, brick by brick. But we'll definitely see. So, we actually move on to a little bit of housekeeping for the week. I really don't like to do this. I don't want to have to do this. And if, V would let me live it down, I would skip it.
Never.
But V deserves his flowers. And he had another great week, a 2-0 week. He's actually running away with this thing. I need to figure something out quick before this thing gets out of hand. He has definitely taken a commanding lead here at a 10-6 on the season. And I think, V, is this your third 2-0?
I think
or
it's
is
just
this
your
your
second 2-0.
Okay, just a second. And then I had one, and I think it kind of swung it one way. But, we're back at it. And what we ended on last week was that we had Carolina at Atlanta. And you were on Carolina plus 4.5. And they actually end up covering with that crazy late game exchange of points, which was insane, by the way. I was on the edge of my seat, not expecting that. And Atlanta ended up winning the game, but only by 3. So you ended up covering there. And we talked about this a little bit on the show last night, but PJ Walker, what in the hell is going on over there? This man threw for his career high, and then I have to take crow from Jason in the Discord. I couldn't even believe the nerve on that guy. But you know what? He had a point. Like, PJ Walker might have some things. Like, he might be able to make a career out of being a backup and coming in and playing valuable football on good downs and taking care of the football, and then exploding when you need him to, when the opportunity arises. Because that's exactly what happened when they took advantage of this Atlanta secondary, which we're kind of probably going to be touching on up until the end of the season because they're printing money. They're literally one of the worst units I've seen in a long, long time. So that was where we went for the first game. And then you actually hammered the Arizona at Minnesota total, and that was at 49. You took the over. The game ended at 60, Minnesota 34, Arizona 26. And it kind of makes me wonder about our total for this week, which we'll get into here in a second, because I kind of project them to be similar games, but we actually ended up on different sides of them 2 weeks in a row. And I think sometimes that just comes down to how, the luck of the draw and how we, pick the games for the week. But it's all right. That's how it goes. So we actually head into our picks for this week. And we all have a little bit of skin. Vaughn even has one of these games on his slate. And so that makes it a really, really interesting draw. So our first game of our NFL versus piece. And again, if anybody doesn't know about NFL versus, me and V, we go head to head every single week on the book, and we're taking each other down. As you saw, V's getting the better of me right now, but I've had a couple of good blows, and we're hopefully going to get right this week. So the first game on our schedule is actually the Chargers at the Falcons, and I'm on the side of the Chargers -3. Now, when we wrote this up, there was a little bit more hope that Keenan Allen was going to be available, and turns out that that's not going to be the case after he re-aggravated his hamstring in the bye week. And it's official that the only things that are certain in life are death, taxes, and a Keenan Allen hamstring injury. So that's unfortunate. But it's kind of been – it hasn't moved the line a whole lot. The line's kind of stayed right around 3, which is an interesting draw. I think maybe Oddsmakers expected him to miss a bunch of time or – to really not make a huge splash like he did in the game before the bye. So it's going to be an interesting. And V, you're taking Atlanta at +3 in this matchup. And Vaughn is actually also liking Atlanta at +3 in this matchup. V, what are you seeing that interests you with Atlanta and the points at home?
This is just the Chargers not being the team we were expecting them to be coming into the season. A lot of that is definitely with injuries. I think we already talked about Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is going to miss this game and probably a little bit more time after this. I think they're also talking about Josh Palmer having a concussion and not being 100% sure if he's going to play in this one too. So just a lot of injuries, and then defensively, this is just not the Chargers defense that we thought we were going to see coming into the season. They've been very, very poor. The big additions with J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, and they're still just giving up way too many yards, especially on the ground. They're not playing very well right now. So I think I was surprised to see what Atlanta did last week in terms of throwing the ball. Mariota had a season high in pass attempts and passing yards and touchdowns and everything like that. He showed that he can throw the ball when given the chance. For some reason, they just weren't allowing him to do so. So hopefully, they continue on that trend. If they allow Mariota to throw it, he'll have some success because, again, this Chargers defense is not playing well. And then I think there's a good chance Cordell Patterson is going to come back and play this game. We'll find out more tomorrow. If he does, he should have a big game too because the Chargers' rush defense is really, really bad. As bad as Atlanta's passing defense is, Chargers' rush defense is like equally as bad. They've given up the most yards per carry in the league right now. I think they're near the top in rushing yards per game allowed. So that's just at 3 is just too many points. With so many injuries for the Chargers offense, I don't know if they're going to be able to take advantage of Atlanta's weak secondary, and they're just not playing consistently right now. You can't trust them. I just feel like 3 points on the road is too many for them.
Yeah, and and I get it. And this is actually a matchup that on the book is kind of tailor-made for Atlanta in the sense that like they have been really good with points on the road and at home. But when you give them points at home, they've been really good. The only games they've dropped against the spread were the home favorite against Carolina last week. And then actually the week before that, they were, I believe, a road dog. I'll have to get the number in front of me. But so those were the games they dropped. And to me, it's interesting that that's their most recent outings. And we had a conversation about this a couple weeks ago when they refused to throw the football, even though they were behind against Cincinnati all game. Literally every second of the game, they were pretty much down. And they just refused to throw the ball. And then they come out and they turned it around and they did the same thing, but in the opposite. They threw it all around. And I think that, to me, when you drop two spreads in different ways, it shows that right now, I think they're a little confused about their identity because you have to think about no Cordell Patterson has really hurt them. Like they're still getting production on the ground, but I think they're proving like, hey, we have to throw the ball a little bit. And they showed out. They did well throwing the ball last week against a fairly good Carolina defense. But I think on the other end too, I like the prospects of if PJ Walker can absolutely light Atlanta's secondary up, anybody in the league can. Absolutely anybody in the league can. And if Justin Herbert is going to be this guy that's throwing the ball, like we talked about a little bit last night during over underdogs when I took the Justin Herbert over on attempts, if he's going to be this guy that has to throw the ball 45 times a game, he's going to need to make good on this and get this yardage and get these points, even when you don't have Keenan Allen, even when you don't have Mike Williams. I know we talked about Josh Palmer. I thought Josh Palmer actually was practicing, but I'll have to check the practice report, see if he might have had a setback or something. But so they're getting some people back. They're also getting Donald Parham back. I think they're going to be stronger than they have in the last couple of weeks, and hopefully that's going to make that difference. Now, it's obviously a little bit worrisome to give up or to lay 3 on the road, but I think, man, Atlanta's secondary, they have to be terrified of going up against a guy like Justin Herbert with that type of secondary. So I find it interesting. And Vaughn, you're actually also on this game on Atlanta. Are you seeing anything else differently that V didn't maybe highlight?
So you said Donald Parham's playing. So he's actually out
Did he?
week.
I thought I know that they were talking about like they both had concussion things, and I know that like early in the week they were like, yeah, they're trending towards coming back. And I don't know if I checked on the injury report as of recently, but if they're both out, that is tough. But I mean, we'll have to see. A guy like Justin Herbert's got to do it. Sorry, not to interrupt you, Vaughn. Go ahead.
Right. No, yeah, it's all good. And it's astonishing. I looked at the injury report, And even DeAndre Carter, their wide receiver 2 this week, just popped up on the injury report. Apparently he has some kind of illness, so he may not even play. That's why, I mean, if you want to go to bet on a player prop, Gerald Everett over on the receiving yards is definitely going to be a great play this week. But yeah, starting with my pick with Atlanta +3, I just can't get over how banged up this Chargers offense is. And with all those receivers out, and yeah, I know Eckler's a great receiver and outside runner, but going on their run game, he just can't be relied upon on first and second downs between the tackles, especially against like an actually decent Atlanta run defense. That's pretty tough. They're top 10 in, I think they're 10th in rushing yards allowed. So I think they should do a pretty good job on Eckler between the tackles on first and second downs. I just don't know who Herbert's going to throw to. And with the lack of running game or competent outside receiver, he's going to have to put the offense on his back, Justin Herbert, and make some amazing plays to keep them alive. I know Atlanta's pass defense is literally the worst in the NFL. I know we touched on that. But they just don't have any receivers to worry about. But going on Atlanta's offense, it's been hit or miss, but they are expected to get back Cordero Patterson from injury this week, who is Arthur Smith's favorite player. And that will add another dimension for the Chargers defense to worry about, who, like V said, has been very disappointing this year. And the Falcons' offensive line has been much better than expected and should have no problem manhandling the LA defensive line, who's still missing Joey Bosa. I expect this to be a relatively high-scoring game, with the Falcons pulling the upset at home 28-24. I think the only reason why this game is close is because of Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and it's actually if I wouldn't have even thought this was gonna be a super high scoring game until last week when Atlanta kind of showed that they can throw it around a little bit. It's gonna be an interesting draw for sure. And we got another one from Thomas here. Thomas is in Washington State, which they are finally putting in some books in there. We love to hear it, Thomas. And Thomas, come by the Discord, drop into the sports betting tab. You can at any of us, and we'll definitely throw you some good picks for Sunday that you can take to your book. So we would love to do that. All right, boys. And then on to the next one for NFL versus, and then we're on to our picks for the week. The second pick we have for NFL versus is Seattle at Arizona. We're on the total for this game. And like I said, it was a little odd because it was I felt like a pretty similar matchup to the one that we had last week on the total, which ended up going over, which you won. And we kind of flip-flopped this week. So I'm on the over at 50. You're on the under at 50. And the line has actually moved towards you, V. It's at 48.5, 49. So what are you seeing when you see these two teams? This is going to be an interesting matchup because, hey, I kind of sold on Arizona a little bit too soon, maybe. And I'm eating crow for it. I'm definitely learning my lesson because DeAndre Hopkins has been lights out. He has made the difference for that offense. And now it's another story if they're going to win a bunch of games because of it.
I was going to say.
They're not going to win a ton of games because of it, but they're definitely going to be more competitive on the offensive side of the football because he has really taken a lot of pressure off of everybody else on the offense. And not only that, he's performing out of his mind. He's playing great. So it's going to be an interesting watch for me. What are you seeing when you see these two teams? I know that Seattle's definitely got to be high on your list. They've definitely surprised both of us this year.
I mean, yeah, if we go back to our preseason, preview shows, I was hammering the fist for Seattle being the worst team in the league and having the first overall pick this year. I thought this team was going to be atrocious, and I could not have been more wrong. I think everybody has just been completely shocked. But the even bigger shock the last few weeks is how well Seattle's defense is playing. They've played 3 games this past 3 weeks against Arizona, the Chargers, and the last week against the Giants, and they're holding those teams to an average of 15 points in their last 3 games. This defense is playing incredibly well right now, and it's due to a bunch of rookies. I mean, Tariq Woolen has I think 5 interceptions already. And then Nwosu, one of their edge defenders, has 5 sacks or 6 sacks already in the season. I mean, they're both leading the team. They're just playing out of their mind right now. And I think the reason I went with the under was because the last time these two teams played in week 6, this game ended at 19-9. I mean, neither offense could really do anything. I think that's kind of stuck in my head. I fully expect Seattle to, bounce back and have a better game this time around against Arizona in terms of offense, but I don't know what Arizona can do. I mean, yes, they've been better the last couple of weeks, but their offensive line isn't good. They're not going to be able to protect Kyler Murray. Murray was sacked 6 times in that game in week 6. Murray is still turning the ball over quite a bit. He had 2 really bad interceptions last week. I think he put the ball on the ground one time as well. It just wasn't recovered by Minnesota. Arizona was able to get it back, but I don't know. There's just too many points right now in this game. I don't trust Arizona to be able to put up points. I mean, this line in general in the spread is crazy at +2. I have no idea why Arizona is favored in this game. I think this is going to be a blowout for Seattle. I think Seattle can get to maybe 30 points, but I don't know if the Cardinals can get to 20 points and hit the over on this one. I just think Seattle is playing out of their mind on defense right now.
When I saw that, I kind of attribute that to like some weaker matchups, though. Hopefully, this Cardinals.
One of those matchups was Arizona, though, right?
Yeah, but it was Arizona without Nuck. So it's like, if they get Hopkins, maybe that's kind of the difference maker, and that puts more points on the board. But it's going to be an interesting watch for sure. Bon, do you have any lean on this one at all?
So I thought I did. I had the same feeling as you guys when I first saw the game. I'm like, why is it's Arizona -2?
Yeah.
That's weird. I actually looked at the line and I'm like I got scared and honestly suspicious. I'm like, why is that the case? Why is Arizona favored in this game? And I think it's probably just because this season has been so unpredictable and they're kind of expecting the Seahawks to come back to earth. And the Cardinals to kind of like pull off a little bit of an upset, I guess, just because there's been so many upsets this year. I think the Arizona defense has definitely surprised me. I thought it was going to be atrocious, and it's actually been like pretty decent. Isaiah Simmons has come along a lot this year. But yeah, I have no feel about this game, honestly. I could see it going either way. I'm not touching the game. Like you guys, I was down on Seattle coming into this year, and they've completely blown away my expectations. This rookie class is legit. I mean, it's every single draft pick is playing well, and yeah, I know Nuke has really taken the Cardinals offense back to what it should be with Kyler Murray. But yeah, I'm staying away from this game, definitely. The line just kind of and then like what V said with the over under, it was 19-9 a few weeks ago, and I still remember that too. So that's why I'm not touching that either. So I'm going to try to avoid this game.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that these division games always have some sort of weird wrinkle for sure. The teams hate each other a little bit more when they meet up.
Yep.
All right, and then on to the slate for the week. And we actually have a bunch of games. We have pretty much all of them. So for starters, we are hitting Carolina at Cincy. And V, you're liking Carolina in the points here at +7.5. What are you seeing when you see this Panthers team going into Cincinnati?
I'm seeing a Panthers offense that is doing surprisingly well. I think trading CMC has kind of unlocked things. We mentioned this a little bit last week, but I think with CMC, he's so good that you just want to constantly get the ball into his hands kind of at no matter what the cost is. But the team around him just wasn't very good at getting him the ball. We see what a good offense in San Francisco can do in terms of getting him the ball. But in Carolina, once he gets off the team, I think they're able to kind of spread things around a little bit and do more things on offense. And PJ Walker has shown he's kind of capable of pushing the ball down the field. He can make a ton of throws. They have a good running game with Deontay Foreman. And I don't know, Cincinnati's secondary was atrocious on Monday. They got absolutely torched by Brissett and Amari Cooper. They're down their top corner. Uzier, I think he's injured. He might be done for the season. I think Walker and DJ Moore will have a pretty big game in this one. I was tempted to take DJ Moore higher last night on our over underdogs, but there's a couple other picks I like better. But I think they're both going to have big games. And then on the other side, Cincinnati's offense looks terrible without Jamar Chase. He's going to be out again this week, and their offensive line is not protecting him. Could be a big Brian Burns game off the edge for Carolina. 7.5, way too many points in this game.
Especially with how tough Carolina has played with PJ Walker. They must like the guy because they're definitely playing well. Vaughn, are you seeing anything else with this game?
Yeah, I was going to say, PJ Walker's got a little, like, Taylor Heineke in him a little bit, you know? Like, you could just see, like, he comes in the game, you know he's a backup, but the team just looks rejuvenated on the field with him. Like, DJ Moore's playing well now. Like, the Panthers just look like a different team, and I think the coaching change really helped, too, because Wilkes is definitely more of a motivator. He's a good fit as an interim coach, and Matt Rule was just not getting it done.
Wilkes doesn't take any shit. Wilkes takes
I'm also
no
surprised
shit
because like they kept Ben McAdoo as offensive coordinator, and like I thought he was the reason Baker was playing poorly, but now PJ Walker's playing well, so I guess I was wrong about that whole thing. But I'm not going to touch this game. I think the Bengals, they still have so much talent on offense without Jamar Chase. Like T. Higgins would be a number one receiver on most teams, I feel like. And Tyler Boyd is just like, the ideal slot guy and can be a competent number two. And Joe Mixon, he hasn't been playing great this year, but I think he's still Joe Mixon. He's still a really good player. I think with the Bengals, it's been the coaching and the play calling. I think it's too simplistic. I think they need to mix it up a little bit, throw some motions in there, and try to get these receivers open and try to make it easier on Joe Burrow. I think that must be the reason, and the underperforming offensive line for sure. If I were to go bet this game, I would take the Panthers and the points, definitely, just with how good underdogs have been this year. But I could also see the Bengals, coming back to form and Burrow putting up, 400 yards again. So I don't really know what to expect. I wouldn't touch this game. I would go the over if I have to bet anything. But because of like what V said, Awuzie's out for the year, and their defense played awful on Monday night. So I could see this being a high scoring game. But other than that, I'd probably avoid it.
V hit on it a lot for me is definitely that last game in prime time. I had a lot of skin on that one, thinking that Cincinnati was just going to wipe the floor with the Cleveland team that just wasn't going to be able to hang with them. And then they didn't. And so it brings to question for me, because you have this weird Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde Bengals team that has, did the things they did for the first couple weeks, and then they kind of flip-flopped. And then, just like you said, they have pieces that they shouldn't really skip a beat too much, missing out on a guy like, maybe Jamar Chase or, a number one corner like Awuzie. But these things are definitely hitting them hard. And Vaughn, I think you highlighted it well, that sometimes you have to question the coaching, because when you start to lose pieces, the best coaches really shine. And so this is going to be that opportunity for them to figure that out for sure. It's going to be a nice game, because nobody thinks the Panthers are going to win. And everybody in the Panthers locker room definitely thinks they're going to win. So that's why I agree with you too. At 7.5, the hook is a really interesting aspect too, which is why I like that. So on to the next game. We have the Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions. And V, you're on this one too. And I'm actually right there with you. Detroit at plus 3.5. What are you seeing when you see these two teams?
Yeah, this line is weird. Detroit was a home underdog last week against the Dolphins. It was the same line. They're 3.5-point underdogs last week against Miami. And now they're 3.5-point underdogs against Green Bay. Does that mean on a neutral field, Miami and Green Bay would be a pick'em? Is that what we're supposed to believe? That does not track for me at all. I know Detroit's defense is really bad, but Green Bay has really no offense that we've seen of recently. And on the flip side, Detroit's offense is just so much better at home. than it is on the road. I don't really understand. These splits are insane. At home, Detroit is averaging 35.7 points per game. On the road, they're averaging 10 points per game. I mean, I can't really explain why there's such a big difference. It really shouldn't happen, but that's where we're at. I don't think Detroit's going to score that many points at home, but even if they score 20, 25 points, where's Green Bay going to come in and score 25, 30 points? They have not shown that they can do that this year, even when they're going up against a bad Detroit defense. So this line is just kind of weird to me.
I'm right there with you. I completely agree. And the big thing for me was that, like, we talked about this a little bit last night when I took Aaron Jones to go over on the rushing prop there. And a lot of that comes down to, I think this game is going to be close the whole way through. Because just like you put it, the Lions play much better at home than they do on the road. And the Packers, they just don't have a lot going right now, offensively at least. They are, I don't want to say putrid because they still have a Hall of Famer at quarterback, but I'm not afraid. I don't think any defense in the league is afraid of the Green Bay Packers right now, frankly. And so I think this game's definitely going to be close. And when you give me 3 and the hook at home against a team that are kind of just treading water, I'm going to take it every time. So I'm right there with you. Vaughn, are you seeing anything when you see this Lions team? And remember, when you say good things about the Lions, Jack might have you on his show, and he has a big show. He has a good show that has, pros and all pros and pro bowlers and all that shit. So do you have anything nice to say about the Lions, Vaughn?
I do. They kept up with the Dolphins last week, which was really impressive. And this offense is actually like good. The offensive line, as I've said in previous podcasts, top 3 in the league. They have an elite offensive line and who could keep up with any defensive line. They have a good running game. I don't know if DeAndre Swift is coming back this week. Is he out? I'm not sure.
I think he's probably going to play. Sure. He played last week. He should be playing again.
Right.
Yeah. So if he's not limited, then they should have success on offense, especially against a disappointing Packers defense. I can't wait until they get Jamison Williams whenever he comes into the fold, because I think he's going to take over the league. I have a really good feeling about him. But as of now against the Packers, I think, I had the same feeling as V. I think this could be an upset. I really do. At home, the Lions, they're so passionate with Dan Campbell. The fans show up to every home game. I think that's a part of their home magic. Goff has had one of the best years of his career. I don't care about the stats. He's been making more plays on his own, I think, than ever before in his career. And I just think the only reason why I'm not touching this game is because of Rodgers against the Lions. I just have too many memories of Rodgers and the Hail Marys and, the disappointment with the Lions. They play so well, and then at the end of the game, it just falls apart for whatever reason. But
that's what the hook's for, Vaughn. That's what the hook is for. That's why we have the hook.
Right. I could definitely see the upset. I could see Hutchinson having a really good game, and Okuda's been playing well this year, although the other members of the secondary, have left something to be desired for sure. But if I had to bet this game, I would do Detroit money line just because the spread is so low on a last-second field goal. I think the Lions could definitely pull this off. I was just scared because Rodgers against the Lions, I'm just not going there. So I'm personally avoiding the game, but if I were to go onto the game, it would definitely be Detroit money line.
Yeah, I can see it. And our guy here, Yoye, was taken. He is ready to put on the helmet and the shoulder pads and get in there. Yoye, if you can play press man, I think that they could definitely use you out there at corner. It's something that they've needed for a long time. You could make a real difference to this team moving forward. We love to see it. So on to our next game of the slate. We have the Miami Dolphins at the Chicago Bears. These Chicago Bears. And I'm sorry, V. I hate to have to do this to you, but Vaughn and I are both on Miami at -4 here. This one actually surprises me a little bit because I actually wrote up Miami as my early line value of the week. If you guys don't know what that is, every Tuesday we drop our early line values. You want to get in early and often on the book so you get the best values. We practice what we preach here. So we've been monitoring this one all week. And it's actually moved from -5, which I thought it was going to move towards a touchdown, especially with the news of getting Bradley Chubb. But it's actually moved towards Chicago. And I think, obviously, you get a little bit of their own trade news over there when they got Chase Claypool, which is an incredibly questionable call, in my opinion. But I think we'll get your opinion on that too, V. And V, you're actually on the over at 45.5 here. I think we'll start with Vaughn. Vaughn, what are you seeing when you see this Dolphins team laying points on the road?
It's one guy, Roquan Smith, for me, is what made me take Miami here. I was actually surprised when I saw this line because the Bears just traded away their defensive quarterback and their leader, probably the best player on the team. And I don't think that sends a good message to the locker room, that the organization feels that they have a chance this year to make a playoff run. So I think that sends a bad message to the locker room. Look, I respect Matt Eberflus as a defensive mind, but I just don't see how their personnel, and without Robert Quinn, I just don't see how their personnel can match up with this insane Miami offense. For me, Tua is the perfect example of what I call a point guard quarterback. Think like 07 Rajon Rondo with the Celtics, when he was just like a distributor. He's limited, but he executes the offense and distributes the ball to his playmakers efficiently, and he's playing great right now. Hill and Waddle should breeze by this Chicago secondary that has talented players, but it just not a lot of experience and definitely not enough to keep up with these two. Seeing what the Cowboys did to the Bears with Roquan, this, in my opinion, should be a blowout in the vicinity of like 45-24. If you can, I would even take a higher alternative spread. That's what I'm doing. On FanDuel, you can get great value with Miami -9.5 at +182. Personally, I'm rolling the dice even more. I'm betting Miami -13.5 at +280 for my weekly parlay.
You're putting that on a parlay? Good Lord. Good luck and Godspeed. We love to see it though. And I'm right there with you because maybe not right there with you, but I'm definitely leaning that direction because to me, when you look at this team, it looks like, at least against the spread records, that like Miami's like a middling team. They're like 3 or 4-4, 4-3, something like that against the spread. But when you look deeper into it, those games don't all come with Tua. The games that Tua's in, he's only dropped one game against the spread, and it was last week or 2 weeks ago. They were a 7.5-point favorite against, I forget off the top of my head, but they only covered by 6, or they only beat them by 6. So they missed the spread 1.5 points off of more than one score. So I'm not alarmed at all. I'm right there with you. I think that this game is an easy 7 on the road. It could have gone even higher. And I want to get V's input on what he thinks about the trades for sure. Because, Vaughn, you touched on the Roquan trade, and I touched on the Claypool trade. These are strange trades to me. It's strange to be a buyer and a seller. What do you make of this, V?
I think Vaughn mentioned that, last week Dallas put up 42 points, and that was with Roquan on the field. Roquan is very talented, but this defense is not playing well with him on the field right now. This team is atrocious against the run. You saw Tony Pollard just completely destroy them last week. And that's been happening all season. As good as Roquan is, he is not the best linebacker in the game that he wants everybody to believe he is. He gets pushed back a lot. He doesn't make the wow plays. He racks up the tackles, but those are kind of empty stats right now. He's not a game changer, and that's what he wants to be paid as. He doesn't deserve that kind of money, and we'll see if Baltimore thinks he does, but they probably won't even extend him in the offseason either. They just want him for a few games to help in a championship run, but for the kind of money that Roquan was asking for, it just didn't make sense. It might as well get something for him. The Claypool one, I don't know. I haven't watched enough Claypool to know kind of how good he is, how bad he is, what it is. From everything that's been talked about, in the Chicago media, it's mainly just because the wide receiver free agent class isn't going to be good this year. So might as well go get somebody like Claypool who's under contract for another year and a half. We'll see how that goes. But it can't be bad to get more weapons for your quarterback who's starting to finally play well and is showing that he can be a franchise guy. So you don't hate that part of it. In terms of this game, though, I have no issues with you guys taking the Dolphins here. It totally makes sense. If I wasn't a Bears fan, I'd put you all over Miami in this one too. When Tua has started and finished games, Miami's offense is averaging 26 points per game. Chicago's defense is not good right now. I think Vaughn said it. They have talent. They're just very young and they're not playing super well, especially in the secondary. Whenever the Chicago defense plays against good quarterbacks, they allow a ton of points. Rodgers at 27 points, Cousins at 29 points, and Prescott had 42 points last week. That's why I'm all over the over. I mean, Vaughn's at 45-24. That would blow the over out of the water. I think that's Miami almost single-handedly.
That's Miami covering the whole thing themselves. Yeah.
That's what Dallas did last week. Dallas covered the whole over by themselves
thing.
Last
and
week
I took the under. I took the under on that one, hammered it, and took Cairo Santos, and we know how that happened. But that
one worked out pretty.
Right. The funny thing is that I want to see how high this Dolphins team can go because, you highlighted it too last night with Jalen Waddle. Like, they have these pieces that are going to go ballistic. And Thomas, if you don't watch our Thursday night show during halftime of TNF, definitely check it out. It's a short little hitter. We do all sorts of player props through Underdogs Pick'em, and you can take all those lines straight to the MGM book and see what they offer you through player props. And that might be a really fun way because, like I said, Vaughn's hitting it. V's a killer. We're all doing great. And we're printing the money over there. So on to the next game of our slate. We have the Minnesota Vikings at the Washington Commies, the soon-to-be sold Washington Commies. I laugh that Dan gets to name the team this trash. He gets to pick, potentially the worst name that was out of any of them. Now, I'm sorry if you're a Commies fan, but they literally walked into the nickname. They should have thought about this ahead of time. Like, they have a marketing team that should have thought.
Ask one teenager what kind of jokes they can come up with. And
exactly. So the fact that he gets to name the team and then dip in a federal investigation is I think at one point the next story we see in the Dan Schneider timeline is going to be Dan skips the country, moves to Tahiti. Nobody can get a hold of him. After he sells
no
the
extradition.
Team. Yeah, no extradition. So it's going to be an interesting draw moving forward. But for this game this week, they've got to hold down the Vikings at home. And Vaughn, you're on the total for this game. You're at over 43.5. What are you seeing when you see these two and why you like taking over on the points?
First, I wanted to mention, I don't know if you saw, I know you guys, just mentioned Dan Snyder wants to sell the team. Do you see who the potential buyer is going to be?
Yeah. Bezos. And somebody, I think Steve put it in our Discord that Bezos is going to just put the Commies on Thursday night for the whole season.
Right.
And I started thinking, at first I was like, that's so dumb. But then I started thinking, wait a second. Does that solve our Thursday night football problem? Can we just not watch it anymore? Because it's always going to be Washington on Thursday and we can just go back to our regularly scheduled program on Thursday nights? Is this a good thing?
Well, he's a good business mind. I think he'll know better.
Yeah, you're right.
For sure. For all we know, he could change the name to the Washington Amazons. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised.
Another guy I know, he he quoted, "We're gonna end up at one point. We're gonna have the Walmart Broncos playing the Amazon Commanders," and
Yeah.
I can't help but laugh when that is actually gonna be the dead ass truth. Like that's what's gonna happen. So, but sorry to keep interrupting you, Vaughn. Go ahead. You go ahead and break down this game. What you're seeing.
For sure. So this is the other preseason over under I wanted to brag about. My Minnesota Vikings. I don't know if you remember, but they were my team coming into this year. I said I expected them to win the NFC North and get to 12 wins. O'Connell being that, Kyle Shanahan guy who just takes this offense to the next level. They just got TJ Hawkinson. I'm very excited to see this team come playoff time. I think they could have like a 2016 Falcons type run where they could be NFC championship. I don't know if they're going to beat the Eagles, but they could make the NFC championship. That being said, I think this could definitely be a trap game. That's why I'm not betting them. So I'm gonna avoid the -3.5 here, whatever the line is. The Commies magically started playing better with Taylor Heineke under center. Not that I consider Heineke to be like significantly better than Wentz, although he could be at this point. He's just so much more popular in the locker room, and you could just see it on the field. The players are smiling, and the players are they're just playing so much better, like we were talking about with PJ Walker and the Panthers. I expect Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel to have good games this week against a bad Minnesota secondary. Heineke should be able to get the ball out quickly before Zadarius Smith and Daniil Hunter bear down on him. It goes without saying, but this explosive Vikings offense should have no problem moving the ball almost against anyone, let alone a mediocre Washington defense in Captain Kirk's revenge game. Cousins not playing in prime time. I think he's going to have that "you like that," if I die, I die mindset going against his former team, and should have a great game. I expect Alvin Cook to run well too behind a much improved offensive line. And I'm going to take Minnesota to win a wild game, 31-27, although I could see this being an upset because you just never know with this season.
And that's actually a good point here. And Thomas brings up, what are you guys thinking about the Minnesota D this week, fantasy-wise? And I think that, Vaughn, you kind of put it pretty well there, especially with your last score, that this Commanders team plays for Heineke. They love gamers. Like locker rooms love gamers, gamer quarterbacks that just go out and give it their all and really just don't BS around. They're not big time guys, and they come out and they work hard, and the rest of the roster sees that. Heineke's a okay player that gets a lot more out of the guys around him. You could tell, like with Terry McLaurin, loves playing with him. You could see that when they connect on that crazy deep ball last week. And so I would fade the D personally. Do you guys see anything else differently on that?
Yeah, I would fade the defense too, just because I think they have a cornerback problem, and Washington, one of the strengths of their team is receiver, and they're playing better with Heineke. I would probably avoid the Minnesota defense this week.
Yeah, I agree. And V, do you see anything about either the Minnesota D or even this game?
Definitely going to fade Minnesota D. This is part of the reasoning I had for the over last week in the Arizona Minnesota game, which I just don't think Minnesota secondary is playing very well. Even though Murray turned the ball over a couple times, he was able to push the ball down the field pretty much at will whenever he got protected. I think Washington's O-line is a little bit better than what Arizona has going on, so I'm not too worried about Heineke facing pressure, and if he has time, I think he'll have no problem getting some yards. And I definitely lean towards what Vaughn is saying in terms of the over, and I think the Commanders will probably cover. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to take either of those yet. I'm kind of waiting to see how injuries play, around for the rest of the league and see what picks I like. But definitely have to lean the over and the Commanders to cover. It's going to be interesting. I want to see what Washington's D-line can do against this Minnesota offensive line. We know Darisaw is playing very well for Minnesota, but Washington just has so much talent on that D-line. If they can actually get pressure there, I think they have a very good chance of pulling off the upset. So I think this is a big test for both of those units. Can Washington's D-line live up to all the hype they've had the last couple of years? And, this can be a good test to see if Minnesota actually has a solid 1 through 5 offensive line. So that's kind of the key matchup in this game that I'm looking at.
I don't know, V. I don't want to get Kirk out of the pocket. He's too dangerous out of the pocket, man.
I do. If you're betting Washington, you want Kirk out of the pocket, right?
Kirk's got wheels, man. Kirk's got wheels. We saw it. We saw it last week.
that was the slowest touchdown we've ever seen.
I know. It was literally. It's funny because I actually I wasn't watching that damn game live, but when I saw the mic'd up thing.
Oh, with O'Connell, that was hilarious.
O'Connell's watch. So it's showing O'Connell. And I didn't really know how long the run was at first. And it's like kind of developing. He's like, oh, tuck it away, go. And I was like, dang, how far did Kirk run? And then they flash to the all 22. It's like 17 yards. It's like, it's nowhere. So, oh, you love to see it. Kirk wears his wedding ring on the field. What do you guys expect? I mean, come on. All right. So on to our next game of the slate. We have the Jets at the Bills. And this is one that me and V both have some skin on. I'm loving Buffalo -11, and V and me are both on the under at 47.5. And I think it's kind of obvious. Hey, relax. That's my chair. Chill. So I think it's kind of obvious here that the Bills are just a way better team. Like, no offense to the MILF Chaser and the Jets, like they've played great football up to now, but they are also a pretty weak roster comparatively, even with the Bills being a little bit banged up. We actually took a Stephon Diggs higher on receiving yardage last night, and it's just because I think this Jets team has been propped up by a defensive performance against subpar opponents, and they just don't have a subpar opponent this week. They have the cream of the crop, and they're going to have to make something happen if they want to keep this game anywhere near close. I think that at 9.5, I am just shocked because we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier when there's some big favorites this week. And I think that some of them could be even bigger. Like we talked about, the Dolphins spread. And I think the same thing with this one. I think a 2-touchdown game is an easy expectation for this. What are you seeing when you see this game, V?
Yeah, I definitely like the under here. Zach Wilson, I mean, let's just face it. He's not playing well right now. Once again, he has more turnovers than touchdowns. He's just not being careful with the football. He's going up against the best defense in football right now. The Bills are allowing 14 points per game, easily the best in the league, 2.5 points better than the Broncos, who are second best right now. They're just playing out of their mind. And then on the flip side, the Jets defense is also playing quite well. They rank in the top 10 in fewest passing yards and rushing yards allowed. I think they're still probably going to have a tough time stopping Josh Allen and the Bills offense. I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to get up to the, that 25, 30-point mark. I just don't trust the Jets to do their part in order to hit the over. I don't know why the over is even set so high. 47.5 seems a little excessive. I don't know if they're expecting the Bills to put up 40, which maybe they can do. But again, this Jets defense is pretty good. So this is too many points for me on this one.
See, and that almost seems like way too smart of a move for odds makers if they really thought that they were going to do that. Because like we said, on paper, the Jets look like they've been pretty good on defense. But like we highlighted last night, a lot of that came from weak units like Pickett's first game in Pittsburgh and the Skylar Thompson start in Miami and then Green Bay, Denver. It just like wasn't really the toughest of teams to really like go up against, at least offensively. So I think they were kind of propped up by that. And I'm right there with you. I don't know how they're supposed to cover this if they're not pulling, a Cowboys move from last week and covering the whole damn thing themselves. So I'm right there with you. Vaughn, do you see anything? Your Bills are going to beat down the Jets on Sunday. It must feel good to know that. You can just take a victory lap right now if you want. I mean, I'm not mad. I won't be mad.
Yeah, it's exciting because, like I said, I'm going to Manhattan this weekend, and Sunday I'm going to be rocking my Josh Allen jersey at the bar. We're going to a Jets bar, so don't be surprised if next time I'm on the podcast I could have a black eye or something. Hopefully not, but might get a little rowdy. But in terms of the game, I don't touch Bills games as a rule because like I think the Bills are going to cover, obviously, but whenever I bet them like spread wise, then I'm always rooting for them to beat the spread. And then when they win and they don't beat the spread, then it's like I'm kind of disappointed, and I don't want to be disappointed if we win, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's a golden rule we all keep here is definitely stay away from your team. I broke that rule a whole bunch like the first week in, and then just hated myself for like a month because definitely just hammered it. I feel like I jinxed the Broncos whole season because I started betting them like early on. And I mean, now we know where that is. So I'm right there with you though. And it's going to be a good one. Have a good time. If you do get in any action, aim for the throat. People don't protect the throat enough.
Right.
Bar fight, you get into a bar fight, go right for the Adam's apple, crumble. They'll crumble to their knees, I promise you. I've never used that one before in real life, if anybody's watching. So on to our next game of the slate. We have the Colts at the Patriots. And this is one that, Vaughn, you're liking the under on here. And it makes a lot of sense. We kind of went over this a little bit with the Dion pick earlier. Under 40.5 points. What are you seeing?
So with Jonathan Taylor out, Sam Ehlinger is probably shitting his pants right now thinking about Belichick's defense, honestly, and I wouldn't blame him if he was. Belichick always has his way with young pocket passers. I wouldn't consider Ehlinger to be much of a scrambling threat at the NFL level. I know he had like a lot of rushing yards in college, but I just don't think he has the athleticism to be like a real mobile guy in the NFL. And without having to worry about the run, Belichick's going to be able to dial up some of his classic zone blitzes. That's going to confuse this underperforming Colts offensive line and the inexperienced Ehlinger. I think Frank Reich will be able to help out the offense a little bit at times with his play calling, but not enough to put together consistent drives. Meanwhile, the Patriots, they have an average offense going up against a decent Colts defense. I'm still a believer in Mac Jones, and I definitely think he's better than Bailey Zappi, who's, to me, more of a backup game manager. Although Mac has been playing like a backup game manager lately. I have faith that he's going to improve. He's been having a rough stretch of games coming off an injury, but he has a great running game, in the backfield. I still expect him to ride Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris for the majority of the game, which has been very effective lately, but I don't expect it to be as effective this week against a massive Colts defensive line with huge people like DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. I mean, those guys are insane. I expect this overall to be an extremely boring game, a snooze fest, if you will. 16-9 in favor of the Patriots.
Oof. What a score, too. The only interesting thing about that game would be how they get to that number.
Right, and not like one of the entertaining low-scoring games.
Right.
Like, I actually think like when games are like 7-6 in the fourth quarter, with just terrible offense, I actually think those games are very entertaining to watch. But this is going to be one where it's like they move to the 50-yard line, punt, then they move to the 50-yard line, punt, and then it's just going to be like you're just going to want to just look at the other games.
The old heads
but definitely under all the way.
The old heads love those games. They love the field position battle. They've been preaching it all their lives. You win the field position battle, you win the game. And they're going to love that while the rest of us are watching actual good football. So on to our next game. Actually, V, do you have anything? I forgot to touch on this. V's always got some great insight for us. Are you co-signing this one too, V? Or what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm down on that. You definitely can't take the over. Like, where are you expecting?
I mean, where are you getting points from?
So if you look at it like that, I guess you kind of have to take the under.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
somebody has to. Yeah. Like, people got to realize that they don't have to score points. Like, the game can end 0-0 tie. Like, they can literally not do it.
Hey, you saw the Texans last night. I mean,
true.
Who knows? I took the under in that game. I was very confident.
So did I.
And then all of a sudden, Davis Mills is just like with nobody is just putting together consistent drives.
Maybe
and
Mills
throwing
is good. Who
touchdowns to
knows?
guys we've never heard of before.
Jason's somewhere going, I told you guys. I told you about Davis. I told you about Davis Mills. On to our next game of the slate. We only have a few more here, and we actually have both primetime games for you this weekend. So you always are going to have something on the slate. So we have the Rams at the Bucks here. Vaughn's liking TB -3, and V's on the under here. Vaughn, what are you seeing when you see Tampa Bay -3 here?
So I actually agree with V and would definitely take the under. I just like the 3 other over-under games better than this one. The perfect way to describe this game would be the Spider-Man meme with the 2 Spider-Men pointing at each other, where both of them are just the most disappointing teams in the league, along with the Packers. But I think these 2 in particular have been the most disappointing, facing off in what is essentially to me an elimination game. I think the loser of this game, bye-bye, see you later. It's have a good season. You're out. So this is another one I wanted to point out. Preseason picks 2 months ago on this podcast, I had a bad feeling about this Bucs team, and even said that don't be shocked if they miss the playoffs altogether, and to take the under, and we're seeing that come to fruition so far. I think they there's a chance they could turn it around, but so far I'm feeling pretty good about that prediction.
It's okay, Vaughn. You can say we laughed at you. It's okay. You can say it.
Right.
We did.
Everybody laughed.
We definitely were not on it, and you're dead right. You were right on it for sure.
But Brady just taking 11 days off, just kind of, that was a red flag to me. I was like, I don't know.
The man lost 25 pounds in 11 days, it looked like.
Right. And speaking of Brady, you can tell by watching him that he's just not all in anymore. Just like the expressions on his face are kind of neutral, and he's kind of like, other than that explosion on the sideline a few weeks ago to his offensive line, you can tell the divorce is really getting to his head, and he's just not all in right now. Him, Evans, and Fournette, to me, look like they've lost a step this year, and this offensive line is definitely not doing them any favors. Overall, the main issue in my eyes with their offense is their lack of speed. In today's
You're still
NFL,
taking Tampa Bay -3, right? Is that where we're still headed?
Oh wait, yeah,
right.
Wait,
yeah.
hold on.
To me right now.
I'm getting to that. I'm just gonna spend a little time shitting on the Bucs, and then we're gonna move on to
And
that.
we're gonna build them back up after.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially when we touch on the other team. But in today's NFL, speed is becoming more and more important as defenders get faster, and the Bucs are just one of the slower offenses in the league. The defense is also underperformed, and now Shaq Barrett's out for the year, so I don't know what's going to happen. However, the Rams, they're in even worse shape. Their offensive line and running game are dumpster fires right now. And, while their defense is quietly decent, it's not good enough to overcome the offensive struggles. It's basically the Stafford and Cup show, and they're putting the team on their back on a weekly basis. Overall, I just have faith that off a 10-day rest, the Bucs will muster up enough juice and motivation, and Tom Brady's going to come out with some motivational pregame speech to avenge the Rams for their playoff exit last year and to prove the doubters wrong, at least just for this week. I see them winning an ugly one, 19-14. Like I said, I'm on the under like V. I don't see either of these teams as serious contenders, but I'll give the slight edge to the Bucs.
Hey, you definitely can see it. It's an interesting one because, like you said, this is 2 teams that have just kind of plummeted. They're not even like fun to watch. Like, it's like watching a car crash over and over every single week. And I can't wait. I cannot wait until we hear the story behind the Cam Akers situation. Like, what is even going on over there? That's going to make the best
He's
little.
not even good enough though to like waste our time thinking.
That
about
is
it.
what thank you. That is literally, we have the same brain, because I was going, who does this guy think he, in my head? See, I don't want to jam him up too bad. He might have something going on in the background, mental health maybe.
That's what I think.
He might have something like really an issue. So I don't want to harp on him too much. But for me, it kind of sounded like, at least the way that it's kind of being like written, it sounds like he's a little upset that he's not getting like the burn that he was expecting as highly as he was drafted, and how hard he worked to come back and all this other stuff. I feel like he feels like he's better than this. And so he's like, all right, I'm out, trade me or whatever. And it's like, I'm not sure where you think that is. Like,
right. He thinks he's Todd Gurley.
But yeah, like, I don't know where you think you have that pull.
I mean,
if that's
he
the
can
case,
say that, but I guess my bigger issue is like,
go ahead.
I was just like, why do we have to keep hearing about it though? Like, even if he thinks he's very good, why do these reporters keep like talking about him and putting stories out? Like, who cares about Cam Akers?
I was actually going to touch on that. So, apparently they put out these rumors. I don't know if you heard that they were turning down offers for Cam Akers through trades, and that was a bunch of bullshit. Apparently, Mike Florio said this morning that he heard insiders in the organization that they were just putting that out there to like make Cam feel better about coming back to the team, because they just have they're running Ronnie Rivers right now. I mean, who the fuck is that? So I guess they're just trying to, revitalize their season somehow. And Cam Akers played well last year, but something's going on with him. Like, him and Elijah Moore. I don't know what's going on with those two.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, I love Sean McVay. I've been a big proponent of like getting younger coaching in the NFL and stuff like that. But sometimes I feel like you're just too soft on a room full of men. Like, you got to be pretty straight up with these dudes and not sugarcoat things, and like just be straight up, because they're running into issues where it's becoming a problem. But hey, we'll see. I can't wait to see the Cam Akers thing come to fruition and see what happens there. So it's going to be an interesting tidbit. And wait, did we build the Bucks back up though, Vaughn?
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, okay. It's all right. It's just like the battle of like being bad enough that, me and V do this all the time, where it's not really about like the team that we're picking. It's about like how bad the team they're going against is. So we do that quite a bit as well. And so we're getting into prime time. You can hear the trumpets. You can hear the NFL theme playing. On Sunday Night Football, we have the Tennessee Titans taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. And last year, and maybe even a couple years ago, this might have been a really good game. Right now, it is not. The Chiefs are favored minus 12.5. Another really big spread on the week that we've been talking about. It's kind of been a theme this week. That's why it's kind of been a little weird. But we're on to it. V likes KC minus 12.5. I'm definitely leaning that way too. V, what are you seeing when you see this primetime matchup against a team we have dogged pretty much all year, and the Chiefs?
Yep. This is another example of betting against one team rather more than betting on one team. There's this narrative going around right now that Tennessee is underrated and playing very well. They are 5-2, which is all good and fine, but if you will allow me a second, can I run through the quarterbacks that they have played this year?
Let them know, V. Let everybody know.
I'm about to let everybody know. They played Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Davis Mills. How many of those quarterbacks did you say are good? Just the one in Josh Allen, right? What happened in that game?
Josh. Mm-hmm.
What happened in that game? They lost 41-7.
Yeah.
This Tennessee team is not good. They have not scored more than 24 points on offense in a single game this year. Their defense has played fine, but again, look at the quarterbacks that they've gone up against. Trash, trash, trash. Now they're going up against Patrick Mahomes. It's not going to go well. And you know what? I've actually buried the lead in this one because Ryan Tannehill has not practiced this week. What are we doing, guys? Malik Willis is looking like he's going to be starting this game. Why is this only 12.5? Why are we talking about the Titans being a good team? They are trash, playing in a trash division. Give me the Chiefs and the points.
The 62%, I literally just saw this, 62% on the Titans. That is
People
horrendous.
just look at the record. They have the same record, so they must cover such a large number, right?
Right.
That's what people are looking at.
We're printing money over here. This is the easiest. I say this like every other week, but this is one of the easiest 2-score games you're going to get all season, guys. Go ahead and hammer it. Call us in the morning with your hedged wins, and we'll all celebrate. Vaughn, are you seeing anything else in this game that we're not seeing?
Well, you saw the spread of the Eagles-Texans game last night, and the Texans ended up covering in the end, and that is maybe the best team versus the worst team in the league. So, like, you don't know what to expect this year, and I think that's kind of part of why the spread's not too big. But this was actually going to be one of my picks originally. Definitely Kansas City minus 12.5. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think I have too much respect for Mike Vrabel as a coach, though. I don't doubt that he could cook up some defensive game plan to limit the Chiefs and like cover this number just barely. But I would definitely be on the Chiefs.
See, and the interesting thing, Vaughn, is that me and V have been pretty high on how the Texans really just play out of their mind, and it kind of comes out of their mind, but over their heads. They kind of just comes to that. You know, we're all surprised for sure, but in my opinion, I think that that's two teams that have like different kind of narrative balance. Like you have, like V just said, this Tennessee team is being propped up in the media. They're in their locker room. Their bulletin board is full of positive stuff that, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to beat the Chiefs. And they don't think, they think that they're going to be better than us. And it's 12.5 points and they're getting gassed up. But I think that the Chiefs are over there going like, who are we afraid of on this team? Because I don't really think that they, just like V had said, they have an issue at quarterback right now, even with Tannehill, who wasn't necessarily playing that well. And now they're playing Malik Willis, who I think could definitely have some potential as a player. But right now, I don't know. I don't think he's a fit for that offense. And I don't think that it's going to equate to, this game being close at all, frankly.
Well, they have no receivers. I think that's probably the issue.
Of course. That's been their issue all. Yeah, we've kicked them on the AJ Brown trade probably about
that was so bad
100 times this year. They're gonna send us a cease and desist letter at some point.
They should send themselves a cease and desist letter for being a franchise after that.
Send it to their front office.
Yeah.
And then on to our last game of the slate. We have the Monday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens at the New Orleans Saints. This is more akin to a Thursday Night Football matchup. But, I mean, we can forgive the schedule makers because this kind of projected as a decent matchup early, prior to the season when they set the schedule. But we are on it, and Vaughn is liking under 44 for this one. What are you seeing when you see this game, Vaughn?
So the Ravens are in a similar situation as the Chargers right now. Baltimore, they're another team ravaged by injuries, particularly on offense. Without Dobbins, Bateman, and probably even Mark Andrews for this game, they're without their three best offensive skill players outside of Lamar. And even Gus Edwards is banged up, who's their second string guy. So they're going to have to rely on Devin Duvernay and Isaiah Likely, which could be a problem against a rapidly improving Saints defense. They were extremely disappointing to start the year, but I think Dennis Allen and company seems to have fixed whatever was going wrong schematically. On the other side, Andy Dalton has looked like an improvement over Jameis, so they'll probably continue to roll with him. They have a great offensive line, and Kamara is awesome between the tackles and as a receiver. I know the Ravens just got Roquan Smith, but he may take a week or two to get acclimated to this defense. And like V said, he's not really a super, super impact player. And besides, they have no pass rush and are too inconsistent in the back end. But I see the rapidly improving Saints taking this one, probably, I don't know, 23-17. I think the under is appropriate. And by the way, they are at plus 410 to win the NFC South right now on FanDuel. I suggest taking advantage of that before they win this game.
That's going to be an interesting one for sure, because that division is just nobody stood out like we talked about with Tampa Bay. It's an interesting thing. And actually, I'm super interested on the Roquan Smith trade, because I didn't realize Roquan Smith was going to go play corner for them, because that must be what they got him for, because that's where they're pretty much shitting the bed every single week. I mean, they have some good players and they aren't necessarily playing that well. And yeah, it's not been that great over there. And we've actually had this conversation a number of times through the year that this Baltimore team has just played underwhelming football. They play to their opponent every single week. So they're not covering a ton of spreads. They're not really making any real headway into to make any bettors super comfortable about putting a bunch of units on them on a game. Look at this. They are favored 2.5 on the road. And I think you could argue that might even be too high. And that's against the Saints team that we have hammered on defense all year, that have just been horrid, wretched on defense. And it's going to be an interesting, thing to watch as they shape up, because like you said, they have an opportunity to win that division. And when teams smell blood in the water, they tend to play their best football. So it's going to be something worth watching. V, are you seeing anything else for this prime time Monday Night Football matchup?
Yeah, I'm fine taking the under on this one. My initial reaction while looking at this game earlier in the week was taking the Ravens and the points, just because they were getting less than 3, less than a field goal. It's kind of a pick 'em, like we've always said. And I think Baltimore is just a little bit more talented than New Orleans. But with all the injuries, like we've mentioned, it's just too difficult to figure out what's going on here. Too many guys missing on both sides to feel comfortable. So yeah, I'm fine with taking the under and just stay away from the spread, I would say.
Yeah, I think we're all right there with it. And boys, that about does it. That was a good show. And I'm going to remember to put our graphic away, as I always forget. And that wraps us up for week 9. We're back same time next week. Definitely don't forget to check out Over Underdogs Halftime of TNF. You can check out that on our YouTube page, on our Twitch page, on our Facebook, all that good stuff. Check out all of our betting work over at importantnonsense.com. Like we said, Vaughn's on a heater with his player props articles. Me and V are duking it out every week on NFL Versus, and you love to see that. I am guaranteed to knock my headphones out at least once a week. You could join our Patreon to get into our Discord to ask all of our guys questions. Our guy Thomas is in there, who's in the comments tonight. You can go in and say hi to him, make some new friends. Shop.importantnonsense.com, promo code LOCK to get all of your good stuff. And then a special good night to Yo-Ye Was Taken. We will see you on Sunday playing cornerback for the Bills, my friend, or for the Lions, my friend. And yeah, that about does it. V, any parting words for the people at home?
Not too much. I think this is going to be a very fun week. There should be a ton of good games. And yeah, hopefully everybody enjoys, and we'll talk again next week.
It's going to be a good one. Vaughn, any parting words for the folks?
Just wish me luck on Sunday.
Good luck. Hey, like I said, if you
whatever bar fight I get into,
keep your hands up. Just keep your hands up. You're going to do I believe in you, Vaughn. I think you got that dog in you. So that does it. Until next time, everybody, good luck and Godspeed.